Okay, so today we will continue with chapter 3, 4, 5, and 6. We have a lot to get through today because last time we weren't as fast. So we'll get started right away. Uh, okay, can everyone see my screen?
No. I cannot see the screen.
Yeah.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, Jerry.
Okay. One second.
Sao rồi?
All right then. We'll start with chapter 3. Can anyone volunteer to read chapter 3?
Can I read chapter 3?
Lily.
All right. So, when I reached the age of 17, my parents decided that I should go to the University of Ingolstadt. I had hitherto attended the schools of Geneva, but my father thought it necessary that I should be made acquainted with other customs than those of my native country. My departure there was therefore fixed at an early date. But before the day could arrive, the first misfortune of my life occurred. An omen, as it were, of my future misery. Elizabeth has caught the scarlet fever. Her illness was severe, and she was in the greatest danger. During her illness, my mother was urged not to sit by Elizabeth's bed. She had at first agreed, but then she heard that the life of her favourite was in danger, and she could no longer control her anxiety. She attended Elizabeth on her sickbed. Her watchful attentions triumphed over the disease. Elizabeth was saved, but the consequences of this risky behavior were fatal to her preserver. On the third day my mother was sickened. Her fever was accompanied by the most alarming symptoms, and the looks of her medical attendants led us to fear for the worst. On her deathbed, the strength and goodness of my mother did not desert. She joined the hands of Elizabeth and myself. My children, she says, the firmest hopes of future happiness were placed on the possibility of an union of the two of you in matrimony. This expectation will now be a comfort to your father. Elizabeth, my love, you must act in my place and take care of my younger children. Unless I regret that I am taken from you, I will try to resign myself cheerfully to death, and will hope to meet you in another world. She died calmly, and her face expressed affection even in death. I did not describe the feelings of those whose dearest ties are broken by the most unbearable evil, the emptiness that presents itself to the soul, and the despair that is exhibited on the face. At first the mind refuses to accept the new reality. It is impossible to accept that a person whom we saw every day and whose very existence appeared a part of our own can have departed for ever. It is impossible to believe that the brightness of a beloved eye can extinguish, and the sound of a voice so familiar and dear to the ear can be hushed. never more to be heard. These are the reflections of the first days of grief, when the passing of time proved the reality of evil, though then the bitterness of the grief begins. Elizabeth veiled her grief and tried to comfort the rest of us. She took up new duties with college and education. She devoted herself to whom she had been taught to call her uncle and cousins. Never was she so charming as at this time, when she recalled the sunshine of her smiles and spent them upon us. I delayed my departure for the university. It appeared to me strange to leave so soon, to leave the house of mourning and rush into the thick of life. I was unwilling to leave those who remained to me. Eventually, however, my father insisted that I depart. Henry Cavill spent the last evening with me. He had tried to persuade his father from permit him to accompany me and to become my fellow student, but in vain. His father was a narrow-minded trader and saw idleness and ruin in the admissions and ambition of his son. Henry felt the misfortune of being kept from a liberal education. He says little, but when he spoke, I read in his eye and in his glance a firm determination not to be chained to the miserable details of business. We stayed up late at night. Neither of us wanted to say the word farewell. At last, however, the word was said. In the morning, I got into a carriage which was to carry me away. They were all there. My father again to bless me. Henry to press my hand once more, my Elizabeth to renew her request that I should write often. In the carriage I included the most matronly affections I, who had ever been surrounded by a menial companions, was now utterly alone. In the university I would have to make new friends and be my own protector. I loved my brothers and Elizabeth and Henry. They were old, familiar faces, but I believed myself totally unfit for the company of strangers. However, as I went on, my spirit and hopes rose. I was eager to learn, and now I had an opportunity. The next morning I arrived. I delivered my letters of introduction and paid a visit to some of the principal professors. Chance, or rather the evil influence, the angel of destruction, which asserted all power control over me from the moment I turned my reckless steps from my father's door, led me first to Dr. Quinn. He was a professor of natural biology, an awkward man, but deeply read in the secrets of science. He asked me several questions concerning my progress in the different branches of science related to natural physiology. I mentioned the names of my homologists as the principal authors I had studied. The professor stared. Have you really spent your time in studying such nonsense? He asked. I replied in the affirmative. What a waste, said Dr. Quinn. Every instant that you have wasted on those books is utterly and entirely lost. You've overloaded your memory with useless theories and names. How is it that no one was kind enough to inform you that these fancies which you have studied are 1,000 zeros and as musty as they are ancient? I little expected, in this enlightened and scientific age, to find a disciple of Albertus Magnus and Paracelsus. My dear sir, you must begin your studies entirely anew. He wrote down a list of several books. Before before dismissing me, he told me that he was about to begin a course of lectures upon natural physiology. He mentioned that Dr. Waldman, another professor at the university, would lecture upon chemistry on the days himself, if not lecture. I was not disappointed, for I was outgrown my fascination with the others he criticized. At the same time, I felt no desire to study natural physiology of the sort Dr. Queen was committing. The great scientists and philosophers of the occult have sought immortality and power. They had wonderful visions of what might be accomplished even if their methods were flawed. But now the scenes was changed. The modern auto-theories in natural physiology seemed happy to destroy the visions of old masters, the visions on which my interest in science was chiefly founded. I would be required to exchange fascinations of boundless greatness for the realities of little world. After a few days passed, I thought of the information which Dr. Green had given me concerning the lectures. Although I had no interest in hearing that little self-important fellow deliver sentences out of a pulpit, I recollected what he said of Dr. Waldman, partly from curiosity and partly from not having anything else to do. I went on the first lecture. Dr. Waldman entered shortly after I arrived. This professor was very unlike his colleagues. He appeared about 50 years of age, but with an appearance of his greatness below. A few gray hairs covered his temples, but those at the back of his head were nearly back. He was short but stood remarkably erect, and his voice the sweetest I had ever heard. He began his lecture by reviewing the history of chemistry. He described the various improvements made by different men of learning. Then we presented a brief view of the present state of the science and explained many of the elementary terms of chemistry. He concluded a panegyric upon modern chemistry, the terms of which I shall never forget. The ancient teachers of the science, said he, promised impossibilities and performed nothing. The modern masters promise very little. They know that metals cannot be transmuted and that the elixir of life is an impossible dream. But these philosophers, whose hands seem only made to dabble in dirt, and their eyes to pore over the microscope or crucible, have indeed performed miracles. They penetrate the hidden places of nature and show how she works. They rise up into the heavens. They have discovered how the blood circulates. They can tell us about the nature of air we breathe. They have acquired new and almost unlimited powers. They can command the thunders of heaven, imitate the earthquake, and even mock the invisible world with its own shadows. Such were Professor's words, and I was swept away by them. I was fascinated. My mind was filled with one thought, one conception, one purpose. Ah, Frankenstein, I said to myself, so much has been done, but there is more work to be done, and you are the man to do it. You, Victor Frankenstein, will be the pioneer. You explore the unknown powers. You will unfold to the world the deepest mysteries of creation. I did not sleep that night. The next day, I paid Dr. Waldman a visit. His manners in private were even more mild and attractive than in public. There was a certain dignity in his manner. Hearing his lecture in his own house was replaced by the greatest friendliness and kindness. I gave him account of my foreign photos as I had given to his fellow professor. He listened with attention and smiled at the names of Chorus Agrippa and Paracelsus, but without the content that Dr. Cream had elicited. He said that these were men who modern biologists were
Nói, đóng cửa lại.
debated for the foundations of their knowledge. They had left to us as an easier talk to give new names and arrange in connected classifications the facts which they have been instruments of bringing to light. The labors of men doing this, even if wrongly directed, almost always lead to some benefit for mankind. I listened to his statement, which I was delivered without any presumption or affectation. I told him that his lecture has removed my prejudice against modern chemists, and I was eager to begin my studies in the field. I requested his advice concerning the books I ought to obtain. I will give you my recommendations, he said. Chemistry is a branch of natural biology in which the greatest improvements has been. However, it will not do to pay no attention to the other branches of science. A man would make but a very sorry chemist, but he attended to that department of human knowledge alone. If your wish is to become really a man of science and not merely a doctor, I would advise you to study every branch of natural biology, including mathematics. Then he took me into his laboratory and explained to me the uses of his various pieces of equipment. He told me which ones I ought to get for myself and promised to let me use some of his once I had made some progress in my studies. He also gave me the list of books which I had requested, and I took my leave. Thus ended a day memorable to me. It was a day that decided my future destiny.
Okay, by the way, for you guys that have joined late, can you guys please open your cameras? From this, from chapter 3, we can see that just before Victor turned 17, Elizabeth catches scarlet fever, which is a very common type of fever back in the time when the author was writing it, and passes it on to Victor's mother, who dies. Her dying wish was for Victor and Elizabeth to marry. While still in grief, Victor says goodbye to Clerval, Elizabeth, and his father, and leaves to study at Ingolstadt, a university in Germany. You you can see from this part that Victor's family, perfect family that have been portrayed so many times in the first two chapters, suffers its first pain. His loss of innocence just first began with his mother's death and continues with his quest for knowledge, his thirst for philosophy at the University of Ingolstadt. Then he met with his professor of natural philosophy, M. Krempf, who tells Victor that his previous studies have all been a waste of time. Yet Victor is then attends a class with Professor Waldman, a chemistry professor whose lecture on the power and recent successes on science inspired Victor so much that he decided to dedicate himself to revealing the world of the deepest mysteries of creation. He have said here that when the modern masters promise very little, they know that metals cannot be transmuted, meaning that they cannot be changed from one substance to another, and that the elixir of life is an impossible dream. But these philosophers, whose hand seem to only dabble in dirt, their eyes to only pore over the microscope, and or the crucible, have indeed performed miracles. These are the words of Professor Waldman, so inspiring to the point where Victor Frankenstein, someone who has been very passionate, dedicated himself, became a disciple to Paracelsus, to Albertus Magnus, started switching from these from different kinds from the sciences that have been really just disproved for almost 1,000 years, to dedicate himself into the thing that is natural philosophy. Overall here, you can see that Victor's does not have a solid passion in anything. Victor's ambition is to gain glory and have and you can see that through how he changes his through how he changes his goals. The only thing he wants is to have glory, and there is also a little bit of an innocent desire to change society, to help society through his achievements and through his advancements in science. You can note how Victor ignores Krempf, just as Walton ignores Victor. Both are blinded by ambition. It's very interesting to see whether it is the fact that he wants to create life because his mother's death, or is it because of his newfound really his newfound dedication to natural philosophy, to chemistry, to kinds of things, science that could help revive or create life. Overall, in this chapter, you have a lot of the active themes. There are many active themes of revenge, of lost innocence that is now starting to bloom, and the romanticism of nature, the romanticism of science itself. When you see science being portrayed as such through the words of Professor Waldman, it became something that is interesting. It became something that is mysterious, yet very open. These are one of the most ingenious ways that Mary Shelley, the author, has tried to represent the thing that is considered science right then and there. She then was a woman, so although at that time women were more entitled to education more than ever, they they were still barred from many things. There was a few years after that, there was an incident. A few years after that, from my research, there was only one. There was the first women admitted into a medical hospital. So you can see how niche and how really from all sides. She is so resourceful on all sides that she is able to write that is something that is scientifically accurate at the time. From this, you can see. From this, we all know that. From this, you can see that Victor doesn't go. Why I don't. one of the reasons why Victor, why one of the reasons why Victor didn't go home from Geneva, from college after a few years, is because of his mentality. He was someone who was very focused on something. You can see that from the last two chapters, when he started being a disciple of Paracelsus, of Albertus Magnus, he became obsessively consumed with his scientific studies and experiments at the University of Ingolstadt. He isolated himself, neglecting his family well-being in pursuit of creating life. Of course, this was most likely derived from the fact that his mother has just passed away, and his obsession has fueled from the fact that he wanted to be able to create something that is lasting, a friend to him for all eternity. His obsession blinds him to everything else, including the passage of time. Now, I want to ask you guys a few questions to see if you understand. Okay. In the beginning, in this part, Victor had said about a secret that he knows. Why do you think that he doesn't want to tell that secret to readers? Why do he keep it a secret? Why did he keep it a secret? Lucy, can you answer?
I, I don't really,
What?
I don't really know it.
Okay. Um, okay, so what I will do is I will give you guys a little bit of time and think why think why Victor won't tell the people who are reading about the secret that he knows. Oh, sorry about this. Sorry, I pulled up the wrong question. I'm so sorry. Okay, so I want you to I want to ask this. When Okay, so why do you think it is that Victor is more drawn to these chemists, alchemists like Paracelsus, Albertus Magnus, some things like that, and philosophers more than the natural philosophers like Dr. Waldman or um, or Professor Kampf? Why is that? Does anyone have any answers? What does uh Okay, why do you think that Victor would feel more interested in something like the things that these alchemists preach, for example, wanting to turn lead into gold or dreaming about the elixir of life, instead of the and more realistic and the things that have already been proven to be achieved in the been proven to be achieved in these natural philosophies. Why do you think that is? Anyone? Ken?
I guess that, yeah, I think that the way to create life was one of the mm, like the more like alchemy more than natural science. So I think that's why he is still more interested in like Cornelius Agrippa, etc.
Ah, yes. So, yeah, your answer is pretty much correct because Victor is someone who has been painted as fascinated by the alchemist's grand ideas about unlocking the secrets of nature, conquering death, obtaining an ultimate power, doing things like changing led to gold, having the elixir of life, the fountain of youth, things like that. Their mystical, ambitious goals appeal to his imagination and desire for glory. And while of course, he is less interested in the more practical, rational approach of modern science at first because it lacks the dramatic promise of what is godlike power. Okay, let us continue with chapter 4. Also, I would note that if you guys, for everyone that has just joined, I would want you guys to complete a quote journal entry for today. Note the date down and note your name down, and note all the quotes that you feel are important.
What are quotes?
Quotes is basically, for example, a play. Quotes in this part is basically, for example, the quote I want is from that day on, natural philosophy and particular this the first sentence I wanted, it means something to the plot, or it means something to me. So that is basically a quote. It's just an excerpt from a book.
You just like take a sentence and take a sentence that you feels important.
Yeah, and you have to really just kind of like explain why it is important as well.
All right.
Okay, Moon, do you have any questions? Okay.
No.
All right. Okay, so who wants to read chapter 4? Chapter 4 is quite long, so I'll split it into 2 parts. Okay. How about Mary? It's been a long time.
Chapter 4. From that day on, natural bibliography and particularly chemistry occupied most of my attention. I read with the energy those work full of genius and discrimination. With the model empire having written about the subject, I attend the lecture and quoted the opinions of the men of science. The university I found even in Dr. Crane's deal sound sense and real information combined. It's true people's appearance and unpleasant manner, but not all accounts are less valuable. In Mr. Warman, I found true friend. He was friendly and never close-minded. Yeah. His instructions were given in an air of frankness and good nature. In thousand ways, he smoothed for me the path of knowledge and make even the most complicated inquiry clear. I was slow, so I was a slow student at first. However, I grew strength, and as I perceived, after a while, I became so eager that the star often disappeared in my light of morning while I was still working on my laboratory. I worked hard and made rapid progress. My passion astonished my fellow students. My skill impressed the master. 2 years in manner during which I paid no visit to Geneva, was eager, heart and soul because some history. I hope make in other studies you go as far as other God for you. And what is this? What is this? What is it? What is it? There is nothing more to know. Besides, though there is always a room for more discovery. I improve rapidly that at the end of 2 years, I made some discovery in the improvement of chemical instruments, which brought great exploration at the university. One subject that especially uh, wait, where is that? Oh, especially attract my attention was the structure and nature the human body. The body is endowed with life, and where where does force come give us life come from? These four questions they were viewed at mis- viewed as great mystery. But chemistry was solving many mysteries. I thought I might allow me I thought it might allow me to solve these as well. I decided to focus my study on living things and human body. So also I had also took the the natural decay and corruption of the human body. I spent many days and nights in Valley and Sean House. I studied the change of life to death, death to life. Into the midst of the darkness, certainly Friday broke up upon me. It was light, so brilliant, wondrous, yet so many simple that I was surprised by my among many genius men who had developed in toward the same science. I alone should discover something astonishing, a secret. Remember, I'm not avoiding the vision thing of a madman. It's not it's not more certain that sometimes in the sky than in it since wait. This discovers wait. uh, Can you go down?
Okay. Wait, no, 1 second. What?
Yeah. At first I was astonished.
Wait,
Alarmed.
oh God.
At first I was astonished. Soon, however, assignments gave me to the light. After so much work and gratifying events, achievements succeed. But this discovery was so great and overwhelming that the step which I had progressively led to where I forgot I saw the results and
Okay, stop at the results, okay?
yeah.
We'll start with another one because this is actually really long. Anyone want to read the rest of the chapter 4? Han.
The steps by which I had been progressively led to it were forgotten, and I saw only the result. What had been the study and desire of the wisest man since the creation of the world was now within my grasp. I see by your eagerness and the wonder and hope which your eyes express, my friend, that you expect to be informed of the secret which I now know. But no, that cannot be. Listen patiently to my story. When I have finished, you will understand why I choose not to speak of that subject. I will not place you on. I will not have to make the same mistakes I made. I would have to learn from my example. I would have you learn how dangerous knowledge can be. When I found so astonishing a power placed within my hands, I hesitated a long time, unsure how I should use it. I could give life, but to create a body with all the fibers, muscles, and veins still remained a work of great difficulty and labor. I doubted at first whether I should attempt the creation of the being like myself or one of of simpler organization. However, I was too excited by my first success to give up the quest. I knew I would probably fail many times, but I reminded myself that science and mechanics continue to advance in spite of countless failures. So I began to work on creating a human being. Since it is tricky to work with small parts, I decided to create a being of gigantic stature, about 8 feet in height. I spent several months collecting and arranging my materials. How can I make you understand the feelings which drove me to continue? Life and death seemed to me imaginary boundaries, which I could break through and pour a great flood of light into our dark world. A new species could claim the things of its child so completely as I should deserve theirs. For pursuing these reflections, I thought that if I could bestow life upon lifeless matter, I might someday learn to renew life, even after death had left the body to decay. This thought supported my spirit. While I pursued the project with constant passion, my cheeks grew pale with study, and I lost weight. Sometimes I felt, yet still I pressed on. Sometimes the work was gruesome. I collected bones and body parts from charnel houses, dissecting rooms and slaughterhouses. I dished the bread with unholy fingers, the tremendous secrets of the human body. In a room at the top of the house, I kept my workshop of curiosity creation. I worked on summer all summer. It was the most beautiful season, but I saw like little of it or of my friends. I wrote to my family only rarely. I see now that I was very much to blame for ignoring my family. The pursuit of knowledge is a noble activity, but it does not release a man from his other duties in life. If the study to which you apply yourself had a tendency to weaken your affections for others, then that study is certainly unhealthy and perhaps even immoral. No man should allow himself any pursuit that might interfere with the tranquility of his family life. If this rule had been thoroughly observed, Greece would not have been enslaved. Caesar would have spared in his country, America would have been discovered more gradually, and the empires of Mexico and Peru would not have been destroyed without degrees. Winter, spring, and summer passed away, but I did not watch the blossoms or the expanding leaves sights, which had always delighted me. I was too deeply engulfed in my work. The leaves of the year had withered before my work drew near to a close. However, by then, every day showed me more clearly how well I was succeeding.
Okay, so thank you for that, by the way. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, 1 second. Sorry about that. Okay, so from the chapter 4 of Frankenstein, you can see that it is starting to really build up the sorry about that. From chapter 4, you can see that Victor becomes so caught up in everything else that he ignores caught up in natural philosophy that he ignores everything else, including his family. He progresses rapidly, and after 2 years of work, he discovers the secret to creating life. His intense focus, here you can see that he so much so that he ignores everything else, including his own family, has allowed him to fulfill his ambition and conquer nature. But one of the things is that it also cuts him off from what is society. He has basically isolated himself from everything else, and that is the price for him trying to create life. This is really just an allusion to the fact that this is an illusion to see that in chapter 4, he uses a simile of light to describe his intense love of natural philosophy, an ambition that really drives him to distraction, but leads him to discover the secret of life. Here you can see that the information I obtained was a nature rather to direct my endeavors so soon as I should point them towards the object of my search, than to exhibit the object already accomplished. I was like an Arabian who had been buried with the dead and found a passage to light, aided by only one glimmering and seeming ineffectual light. Victor, being able to discover the secret of creating life, has decided to build a race of beings, starting with one creature. He spent months alone in his apartment building a body to reanimate, spurred by the lure of fame and glory, imagining a new species that would bless him as its creator. You can see that when he is cut off from society, Victor seeks glory rather than what's best for society. He foolishly thinks he can replace nature and become God as creator of an entire species. Okay, so what I want, so why do you think that why did Victor didn't want to, why did Victor not tell us readers about the secret that he knows? About the secret of creating life. Why is that? Why do you think that he wouldn't tell the readers the secret of his the secret. Sarah?
I think that because the secret is developing life.
Yeah, but the secret is developing life. But why wouldn't he want everyone else to know it? Life is a beautiful.
I think that because he is scared that people might steal his idea.
Exactly. Victor was scared the fact that he fears other might try to replicate his work. He believes the knowledge should be his and his alone. He knows that it is dangerous and can lead to similar or even worse consequences than those that he experienced. You can see that from the letters that we have read before. Okay, what result did Victor arrogantly imagine from experiment, from him being able to succeed making something? What did he think he was going to be like? Anyone else? Does anyone know what Victor arrogantly thinks of himself to be like when he first discovered the secret to life? Uh, how about Luna?
I have no idea. I don't know what to say. Oh my God. I haven't have any idea yet.
Okay, so all right. One of the biggest reasons why he thought of him, he arrogantly imagined from his experiments is that he thought of himself as a godlike creator. He believed that he would create a new species that would bless him as its creator and source. He thought he would conquer death, revolutionize science, gaining glory, admiration, fame from the thing that he discovered. Uh, so right now I want you to guys to look back and see what do you think would happen next in the next chapter? What would happen when what would happen when Victor Frankenstein's experiment is has succeeded? What do you think will happen then? Does anyone have any ideas? Lily?
I think he will not succeed because you can't make death alive again, and you cannot make a new species by yourself.
Okay, interesting. Right, thank you for that. Uh, Ken, what do you think will happen?
I think that after his experiments has succeeded, he would be disgusted and neglected by society, and so he would abandon the monster.
All right. That is an interesting proposition as well. Anyone else? I would like to see something. No one? Okay. Now let us start with the fifth chapter. Also, the chapter where everything goes down.
Mày bật máy tiếp luôn có mà.
Okay, so this chapter would have five. This chapter will have five. I'm sorry. This chapter will have 8 pages in total. So I will split it out into 4 pages each person. Moon, can you read the first 4 pages?
On a gloomy night in November, I completed my work. I was so nervous. At night, it was painful. I collect the instruments of life around me, that I may infuse a spark of being into the lifeless thing that lay at my feet. I was already 1 in the morning. It was already 1 in the morning. The rain patters dismally against the panes, and the candle was nearly burned out. When the glimmer of the half and gauche light, I saw the dull yellow eye of a creature open. It breathed hard and a convulsive motion against its lips. How can I describe my emotions? And how can I describe the creature whom with such infinite pains and care I have formed? His limbs were in proportion, and I have selected features in the hope that he would be beautiful. Beautiful, great God! His yellow skin scarcely covered the muscle and a turd beneath. His hair was long and black. His teeth were pearly in their whiteness. And yet, these traits only form a more horrible contrast with his watery eyes. His eyes were almost the same color as the white sockets in which they were set. This complexion was stripped and lips were straight and black. I had worked hard for nearly 2 years for the sole purpose of infusing life into a lifeless body. For this, I had deprived myself of rest and health. I had desired it with a passion that far exceeded moderation. Now that I had finished, however, the beauty of the dream vanished. Horror and disgust filled my heart. I cannot bear to look at the being I have created. I rushed out of the room. For a long time, I walked back and forth in my bed, tormented with my thoughts. I was exhausted and needed to sleep, but I found I could not. At last, I did fall asleep, but I was disturbed by the wildest dream. I thought I saw Elizabeth in the bloom of health, walking in the streets of Augusta. Delight and surprise, I embraced her, but I imprinted a kiss on her lips. They turned pale. Her features changed too, and I thought that I held the corpse of my dead mother in my arms. I should envelop her form, and I saw great worms crawling in the folds of the funnel. I started from my sleep with horror. A cold dew covered my forehead. My teeth chattered, and my limbs convulsed. Then, by the yellow light of the moon, I beheld the miserable monster I have created. He lifted the curtains of the bed, and his eyes, if eyes they may be called, were fixed on me. His jaws opened, and he muttered some inaccurate sounds. A grin wrinkled his cheeks. He may have spoken, but I did not hear. He stretched out one hand seemingly to hold me, but I escaped and rushed downstairs. I took refuge in the courtyard, where I spent the rest of the night. I walked back and forth in the greatest agitation, listening attentively, fearing each sound might announce the approach of the horrible demon-like corpse to which I have given life. Oh, the face of that creature! No human being could look on it without horror. I had gazed.
1 second. I need to check a bit. Okay.
on him while unfinished. He was ugly then, but when those muscles and joints were at last put into motion, he became a thing such as even Dante could not have convinced. I passed the night wretchedly. Sometimes my pulse beat so quickly that I felt it beating in every artery. I felt weak. I was tormented by the bitterness of disappointment. My dream has turned to a nightmare. Morning, dismal and wet, at length of dawn, the clock of church of Ingolstadt indicate that it was 6 o'clock. I went out into the street and walked with quick steps, hoping to avoid the wretched creature. I did not dare return to my room. I hurried on, drenched by the rain which poured from black and comfortless sky. I continued walking in this manner for some time, trying to believe my mind for bodily exercise. I walk around without doing any clear idea of where I was or what I am doing or what I was doing. I was sick with fear, and I hurried on regular steps, not daring to look me, like one who on a lonely road doth walk in fear and dread, and having once turn round, walk on, and turn no more his head, became he knows a frightful thing. Doth close behind him tread. I came at length to an inn where carriage often stop. Here I paused. I knew not why, but I remained standing with my eyes fixed on a carriage that was coming towards me. It stopped just when I was standing, and as the door opened, I saw Henry. No. On seeing me, my old friend sprang out. "My dear Frankenstein," he exclaimed, "how glad I am to see you! How fortunate it is that you should be here at the very moment of my arrival! Nothing could equal my delight on seeing my old friend. His presence brought back many pleasant thoughts. I thought of my father and Elizabeth, and of home. I grasped hungry hand, and forgot my horror and misfortune. I felt suddenly, and for the first time during many months, calm and peaceful. I welcomed my friend in the most friendly manner, and we walked towards the university. Henry talked for some time about our friends and his own good fortune in the being permitted to come to Ingolstadt. It was not easy to persuade my father, he said. Although he has allowed me to make the visit, he still insists that there is nothing useful to be learned in a university. But his affections for me at length overcame his dislikes of learning, and he has permitted me to undertake a voyage of discovery to the land knowledge. It gives me a great
Delight.
and yet delight to see you. But tell me how you left my father, my brothers, and Elizabeth. Very well and very happy. Only they are a little uneasy that they hear from you so rarely. By the by, I mean to lecture you a little upon their account myself. But my dear Frankenstein, continues he, stopping short and gazing full in my face, I did not before remark how unhealthy you look. You are thin and pale. You look as if you have been up all night studying for several nights. My dear, We're out to rent.
Okay. Will anyone else wants to volunteer for the next part?
No.
Anyone volunteer for the next part? Sarah.
Can you say where she just finished reading? I forgot.
You can just start reading from here.
Okay, you have guessed right. I have lately been so deeply engaged in one project that I have not allowed myself sufficient rest. I hope, however, that all of these activities are now at an end and that I am at length free. I trembled as I said this. I could not bear to think of what happened to the previous night. We walked on and soon arriving at the university. I then thought of the creature I had left in my apartment, and the thought made me shiver. He might still be there, alive and walking about. I was afraid to see this monster again. However, I feared still more that Henry would see him. I asked him, therefore, to remain for a few minutes at the bottom of the stair. Then I then went quickly up to my room. I threw the door forcibly open, as children do when they expect a ghost may be waiting for them on the other side. However, nothing appeared. I stepped in. The apartment was empty, and my bedroom was also freed from its hideous guest. I could hardly believe my good luck. Once I was sure that the creature has indeed fled, I clapped my hands for joy and ran down to see Henry. We went up to my room, and the servant brought us breakfast. I was very excited. My pulse beat rapidly. I was unable to sit in one place. I clapped my hands and laughed aloud. At first, Henry thought I was excited about his arrival. However, after observing me more attentively, he saw a wideness in my eye for which he could not account. My loud, unrestraining, heartless laughter frightened and astonished him. "My dear Victor," he cried, "what in the world is the matter? Why are you laughing in that manner? Are you ill? What is the cause of all this?" "Don't ask me," I cried, putting my hands before my eyes, for I thought I saw a dreaded spectre gliding into the room. I imagined that the monster had seized me. I struggled furiously and fell down in a fit. Poor Henry! What must have been his feeling? A meeting, which he anticipated with such joy, so strangely turned into bitterness. But I was not the witness of his grief, for I was lifeless and did not recover my sense for a long, long time. This was the beginning of a nervous fever that kept me in bed for several months. During all that time, Henry was my only nurse. I afterward learned that, knowing my father's advanced age and unfitness for so long a journey, and how wrecked my sickness would make Elizabeth, he spared them this grief by concealing the extent of my disorder. He was confident that I would recover, but I was in reality very ill. The form of the monster that I have created was constantly before my eye, and in my feverish dreams I spoke to the creature frequently. My words surprised Henry. At first he believed them to be wandering of my disturbed imagination, but the stubbornness con- which with I continually returned to the same subject persuaded him that my disorder indeed owed its origin to some uncommon and terrible event. By very slow degrees and frequent relapses that alarmed and grieved my friend, I recovered. I remember the first time I was able to observe outward objects with any kind of pleasure. I perceived that the fallen leaves had disappeared, and that the young buds were shooting forth from the trees that shaded my window. It was a divine spring, and the season contributed greatly to my convalescence. A feeling of joy and affection returned, my gloom disappeared, and in a short time I became as cheerful as I was before I was attacked by the fatal passion. Dear Henry, I exclaimed, how kind, how very good you have been to me. This whole winter, instead of being spent in study, as you promised yourself, have, has been consumed in my sick room. How shall I ever repay you? You will repay me entirely if you do not upset yourself, but get well as fast as you can. However, since you are in such good spirits, I wonder if I might speak to you about one particular subject. I trembled. One subject? What could it be? Could he refer to the creature of whom I dare not even think? Compose yourself, said Henry, observing my change of color. I will not mention it if it upset you, but your father and cousin will be very happy if you received a letter from you in your own handwriting. They hardly know how ill you have been, and are uneasy at your long silence. Is that all, my dear Henry? Of course I'll write them. If this is your present temper, my friend, you will perhaps be glad to see a letter that has been lying here some day for you. It is from your cousin, I believe.
Okay, so what do you guys? I want.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Your mic is having a problem, Nhi.
I don't think anyone can hear you.
Okay, how about this time?
Okay. Yes.
So, what does everyone think about this chapter now?
Scary.
He's relieved.
Scary.
It's crazy, no?
It's so
Yeah.
crazy.
Scary. Scary.
Scary monster. Scary monster.
Scary.
She's breaking the sound barrier. Lucy's breaking the sound barrier.
Anyway, yeah, it is.
Whatever.
Okay, so basically what happened, TLDR, what happened was after all of the effort that Vicar has put into the creature, he is successful in bringing the creature to life. But once alive, the creature's appearance horrifies him. He thinks of it as a monster. Victor, a flawed man, tried to control and manipulate nature, and things literally, in this point, get ugly. He had said that for this I had deprived myself of rest and health. I desired with an ardor that far exceeded moderation. But now that I have finished, the beauty of the dream vanished, and breathless horror and disgust filled my heart. You can see that even though he poured his heart into what is the creature, it was something that he was not proud of. It was something that was ugly. It was something that was considered a monster, not something that should be a creation, not something that should be a success. Victor, being scared, of course, he runs from the room and tries to sleep, but nightmares of the death and tombs wake him, and when he opened his eyes to see the monster by his bed, reaching out and grinning, He runs and spends the night outside. Victor, the creator, had abandoned his creation. Because of his ugliness, he imagined that it was evil. Victor's innocent belief in himself is now gone. Still avoiding his apartment, Victor wanders around his university and runs into Henry Clerval, who has come to the university to embark on a voyage of discovery to the land of knowledge. Clerval's words, though innocent and earnest, now sound very dangerously ambitious and naive. Victor, of course, he checks to see if the monster is still in the apartment and is overjoyed that it isn't. He invites Clerval up, but once there he falls ill with nervous fever, which lasts for months. Clerval nurses him and not revealing this illness to anyone. When Victor recovers, Clerval asks Victor to send a letter to his family and gives him a letter from Elizabeth. Victor here has made the mistake of isolating himself and keeping his secret all to himself, eating away at his peace of mind and ruining his health mentally and physically. Knowing he has a secret, but not what it is, Clerval tries to reconnect him with society itself. Now, one of the running themes in this story you can see is the theme of family, society, and isolation. Victor has in all these chapters trying to isolate himself because of the tragedies that happened to him, even though he was first portrayed with a very perfect family. So, from reading this chapter, why do you think that Victor fell ill with nervous fever? Does anyone know why Victor fell ill with nervous fever? Jerry.
Because although he has his nervousness about the monster, he still thinks about the monster he created, so he went ill because of worriness.
Yes. So, I will do a bit of a spoiler alert, which is that fine with all of you because I need to explain this quite a bit. So basically, what it is that the monster, it ran away. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't something else. That thing just ran away. And for
Can it come back?
dramatic purposes, I will not answer that question. So basically, yes.
I'm so worried.
Okay, so how do you think? From chapter 4 and chapter 5, what do you feel about the character Frankenstein himself? Like, what can you read from it? What do you feel is, for example, like you can see that Elizabeth is someone who is charming and she is very caring to her family, but so I want to see how you guys are perceiving Frankenstein right now. Anyone? Ken?
Please say it again. The connection was unstable.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Hey, that was why okay. So, what do you think of Frankenstein right now through his actions? What does his action mean to you?
He's relieved. He's very relieved.
No, like I'm just wanting you to judge the character. Like, is he a bad person? What do you feel about him?
I think he is a little bit like a maniac.
Okay. Uh, all right. So basically, what you can see that he is kind of a maniac here, mainly because of the glory and
his hunger for trying to create things. How about Sophia?
I think he's like selfish and being a moron.
Yeah, he absolutely is. You can see that his actions are like, oh, he made something, but he isn't going to take responsibility for it. He feels prejudice. He's prejudiced, and he thinks of himself that first he thinks that he's going to be a god because he created a creature. But then when he saw the creature itself, he was not very thrilled, and his response was to abandon it. So now with chapter 6, we do have to move a bit quickly because we only have 30 minutes left, and I do need to brief you on the homework. Uh, okay, does anyone want to start the first part of chapter 6? Sophia, do you want to start the first part of chapter 6?
Yeah, sure. Henry then puts the following letters into my hand. It was from Elizabeth. My dearest cousin, you have been ill, very ill, and and even the constant letters of dear kind Henry have not been enough to reassure me on your account. I am told that you are forbearant to write, but we need to hear from you, dear Victor, to calm our fears. For a long time I have thought that each post would bring a letter from you, and yet we have heard nothing. Henry writes that you are getting better. I hope that you will confirm this soon in your own handwriting. Get well and return to us soon. To us. You will find a happy, cheerful home and friends who love you dearly. Y- Your father's health is strong, and he is anxious to see you. How pleased you would be to see Ernest. He is not 16 and full of activities and spirits. Little has changed since you left us. The blue. The blue lake and snow-clad mountains, they never change, and I think our peaceful home and our content hearts are regulated by the same unchanging laws. Mother, being occupations take up my time and amuse me, and I am rewarded by seeing none but happy, kind face around you. Since you left us, only one change has taken place in our little household. Do you wait, do you remember on what occasions Justin Morton entered our family? Probably you do not. I will therefore relate her history in a few words. M- Madame Morton, her mother's, was a widow with 4 children, of whom Justin was the third. The girl has always been the favorite of her father, but for some reasons her mother could not stand her, and after the death of Mr. Mordaunt, she treated wait, wait, her very poorly. My aunt observed this, and when Justin was 12 years of age, convinced her mothers to let her to live at our house, the Republican situations of our countries. of our country have produces simpler and happier manager than those which revolve in the great material that surround it. Here there is less difference between the several class of inhabitants and the lower the lower orders, being neither so poor nor so disparate or are more fine and moral. Being a servant general is not the same thing as being a servant in France or England. Justin was received in our family and learned the duties of our servants, a conditions which in our fortunate countries does not include the ideas of ignorance and does not require a girl to sacrifice her dignities as a human being. Justin was a great favorite of your when you were young. I remember you once said that if you were in an ill humor, one cheerful glance from her could cure it. My aunt was very fond of her, and as a result decided to give her an education similar to that which she had at first instance. This benefit was fully repaired. Justin was the most grateful person in the world. She taught my aunt. Can you just scroll up?
Okay.
She taught my aunt the model of all experiments and tried to eliminate her speech and manners. So much so that she often remind me of her. When my dear's aunt died, everyone was too much of hers in their own growth to notice poor Justin, who had assisted her during her illness with the most anxious affections. One by one, her brothers and her sister died. At last, she was the only one of her mother's children left alive. Her mother's constance with troubles, she began to think that the death of her favorite child was a judgment from heaven to punish her for favoring one child over the others. A few months after you left for Inulate, Tristan was called home by her dependent mothers. Poor girl, she wept when she left our house. Tristan resisted at her mother's house brought her little happiness. The poor woman was torn between two urges. She sometimes begged Justin to forgive her unkindness, much, but much oftener accused her of having caused the death of her brothers and sister. Constant worryings at length threw Madame Morton's into a decline. She died at the beginning begging of this last winter. Tristan has just returned to us. I love her tenderly. She is very clever and gentle and extremely pretty. As I mentioned before, her tremors and her expressions constantly remind me of my dear aunt. I must also say a few words to you, my dear cousin of little darling Williams. I wish you could see him. He is very tall for his age. He has laughing blue eyes, dark eyelashes, and curly hair. When he smiles, two little dimples appears on each cheek. Well, I have frightened myself into better spirits, dear cousin. However, my anxieties returns as I conclude. Do write to us, Victor. Even a short letters will be a great blessing to us. 10,000 thanks to Henry for his kindness, his affections, and his many letters. We are certainly grateful. Where is it? Grateful.
Here.
Take care of yourself, and I beg you write. Albert Lenza, March 8th, 15. Dear Albus. Oh my God. I exclaimed it after I finished reading this letter. I sat down I sat down right away and wrote a letter to her and the rest of my family. The exercise of writing tired me, tired me. But I was begging to recover my health. Once I was feeling strong enough to go out, one one of my first duties was to introduce Henry to the professionals I knew at the universities. This was difficult for me. The sight of chemicals and labs remind me of the cultures and renewed all the annoyance of my nervous symptoms. Henry had noticed this and had packed up all of my own scientific scientific equipment. He had also made engagement for me to move into a new room, for he saw that I had acquired a dislike for the room which has previously been my laboratory. But the cares of Henry Clerval were of no used to be used to me when I visit my old professional. Did Wolfman caused me pain when he spreads with kindness and warmth the annoyance process I have made in the sentence. My visit of Dr. Kemp's was even worse. What a fellow, a fellow he have here, he cried. Why, Mr. Clevel, I assure you, young Feinstein, there was done more than any of us here. When he saw that I was not smiling, he added, Mr. Feinstein is not most an excellent qualities in a young man. These were difficult visits for me. Henry had never shared my love for natural science. He came to the university to study ancient language while nursing me back to health. Uh, to health. He began to study Persians, Arabic, and Sanskrit. I joined in his program of study, for I had come to hate my old studies. We spent several months working on the Asian language and went on several hiking trips. The hiking trips helped me regain my health, and they also cheered my spirits. What an excellent friend Henry was to me during those difficult months. His conversations were full of imaginations. At others time he repeats my favorite poems or drew me into discussions. He drove away sickness and glooms and restored me to health and happiness.
Okay, so thank you for that, by the way. So from the chapter 6, you can see from the chapter 6, in her letter, Elizabeth updates Victor on his brothers and says that Justine Moritz, a former servant of the Frankenstein, has come to live with them after the death of her mother. You can see here that the Frankenstein family is still being portrayed as something very blissful, something innocent, and perfect, picture perfect. And while that is happening, Victor introduces Clerval to his professor. But though they praise him, Victor finds anything connected with natural philosophy would cause him stress. So he gives up his studies for a while and studies Middle Eastern language with Clerval. From this, you can see that Victor's innocent joy in natural philosophy has been destroyed, and he seeks to isolate himself from the thing that he once dedicated himself to, due to the fact that he was due to the fact of the monster that he had created. At the end of the term, as Victor and Clerval wait to travel back in Geneva, they took a tour around Germany, which rekindles Victor's love for nature and raises a lot of his spirits. You can see very clearly here that Victor views nature as how a romantic poet from his time would: sublime, impenetrable, free from the burdens of human life. It provides him with relief, with things that are more calming, as opposed to this is the reason why you can see that he has always been attracted to things such as philosophy, to things that are scientific, because nature and science are always interconnected. So now, I want you guys to think, why would why do you think that why do you think that the what do you think that the Justin's Moritz story need to have or would have been present in the story of Frankenstein? What is the need of Justin Moritz story in this part here, in this chapter here? Does anyone know? Anyone know? Lily?
Which Lily?
Okay, so one of the thing here is that Justine Moritz story is a story that is going to build up over time in these next chapters that we are going to learn about very soon. It is quite interesting actually, because Justine would come to be a person that is hated, to be a person that is shunned upon by the Frankenstein family, not something that Elizabeth would talk as highly of. Okay, so I hope that everyone have been keeping a quote journal here. If you did, please publish it. All right.
Can you send us the file which had chapter that we need to read?
All right.
Yeah, like send all the chapters so we can see and read.
Okay, of course. Usually sorry about that. I just forgot. Really. Okay. We started from chapter 3, right?
Yes.
Okay. to chapter 6. Um, okay. Okay, I have sent it in the chat. It's still loading right now, so it might take a while.
Now what are we supposed to do?
I want you guys to skim the I want you guys to skim these passages and see what you guys can and now you guys can complete your quote journal.
What does skim mean?
Skim basically means you will read it fast.
Your what?
Okay.
Fast?
Here.
Skim mean? Hippie, my mute is on.
Okay, so actually we have been overboard for about 15 minutes, so sorry about that, guys. I will leave the quote journals for you to complete on your own time. For now, this is the end of this class. Goodbye, guys.